What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of A Funko Popcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shaddy.
And in today's podcast, it is the top 25 Funko Pops of 2024. We're always doing the top 25 Pops, or a while back, we used to do top 50 Pops of the year podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, this is officially the second last podcast in a Funko Popcast history, as once this gets released, tomorrow on the channel will be the big podcast featuring top Pops and a bunch of other different guests. But at the same time, not only is this the second last podcast, but this actually, sadly, will be the final podcast that MD Shaddy is actually going to be featured on. So unfortunately, he will not be here for the final podcast, but kind of also seems fitting in a way where you weren't here on the very first episode and you're not going to be here on the last episode. And funny enough, with both of those episodes, we're recording off of a cell phone for the podcast because MD's computer the bed. But I don't know, do you have any last words for the pod before, I guess, the little funny outros that you always do for the podcast?
Yeah, fair. I definitely did pick that up, being one of my little things that I did on the podcast with trying to quote something that we talked about in that episode. But yeah, I don't know, obviously we're still doing videos on the channel, so it's not like you're not gonna see my face. You'll actually see it more now, technically, because the actual videos rather than podcast formats. The podcasts are a lot of fun to do. I know some people love listening to them, but I do feel like at some points it might be a little bit too long, 40 minutes to let's say an hour and a half. For some people, you just don't have that time to be able to listen in, so sometimes the long form videos that are 12, 15 minutes sometimes is the better alternative for people. So this makes sense what we're doing. I'm sure we'll do some style videos, let's say with the top 25 or with fandom related. Instead of it being a podcast, we will just do the longer format videos where you watch us talk rather than just listening.
So if you are new to the channel within the last year and you don't remember how this podcast goes, so we have comprised on what we feel is the top 25 Funko Pops of the year. And when it comes to these kinds of lists, and especially when it's a channel featuring two people, you might not always agree on some things. So we have created a few categories that we decide to have our own ratings towards. We add everything up and then we end up having an overall score, which is how all of these end up being placed in the number that they are. If you want to know more about exactly what I'm trying to talk about, we will have everything involving how the scoring works in the description below, because it will just take too long to really explain. But I guess overall, I felt at first doing this list was a bit difficult because there was a lot of good pops, but also at the same time, I couldn't really think of much. But then it dawned on me, I feel like I'm having a bit of recency bias. I had to go back and look at what kicked off the year. And then when I looked at some pops that actually kicked off the year, it's dang, I forgot about those pops. So I think that really took into effect, and why once we were almost done, we were actually God, that was actually difficult of choosing what pops, because there was just so many good pops.
It is weird looking back at what pops came out this year and what to add to this list, because there was some pretty great stuff, but at the same time, it felt what do you pick? You kind of draw a blank on some of the stuff.
Alright, so without further ado, we might as well kick off this list. Number 25 on this list. This is number 703 in the Pop Star Wars lineup from the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary set. It is the Battle Droid. Now, this was just a common release. This had a detail rating of 9, personal reaction rating of 8.1, and overall hype of 6.9, giving it an overall score of 8 out of 10.
I'm not surprised that this came at number 25. This pop is really cool, but at the same time, it is just a battle droid. But it is so awesome that we finally did get to see a battle droid in pop form. Maybe next year we'll see a super battle droid or a droidica. I think that would be really dang cool. But yeah, this is a super solid pop, obviously. We're calling it number 25 of all the pops released this year.
Coming in at number 24 on this list, number 1677 in the Pop animation lineup from Chainsaw Man, it is the Chainsaw Man Bloody Chase variant. Of course, this was a chase figure to a common figure with a detail rating of 9.5, personal reaction rating of 6.6, an overall hype rating of 8.8, with an overall score of 8.3 out of 10. 10, 0.3 higher than the Battle Droid.
Yeah, this is a really cool pop. I mean, it has a lot of detail, of course, with the chase version. Like, the bloody variant is really wicked as well, and obviously that's why we went with that version. I don't know a lot about this character, but this pop looks so cool and definitely makes me interested in it.
Coming in at number 23 on this list, this is number 82 in the Pop Icons lineup. It is Jason Kelsey. This pop is technically a common, except the fact that the only way you can get it was pre-ordering it off the Funko Shop. So is it really a common, or is it a Funko Shop exclusive? This had a detail rating of 7.4 with a personal reaction rating of 8.5 and an overall hype rating of 9.0, giving it an overall score of 8.3, which is the exact same rating as the Chainsaw Man Chase, except this is where the ratings list kind of gets a little bit specific, because personal reaction and overall hype ratings being higher than Chainsaw Man's to make that 8.3 higher than Chainsaw Man's to officially place one spot higher on this list.
I'm not surprised that this one ended up where it was. I thought it would probably be kind of lower on the list. It's Jason Kelsey. It's a hilarious pop. It's funny, meme-worthy. But I do have a question about this pop that DK might be able to answer. Is this pop part of the NFL set? Is it part of the Icons? Or is this like an SE pop? I'm not sure like where it actually falls into.
Well, like I mentioned while listing off everything, I always mentioned the lineup. It is number 82 in the Icons lineup. But moving on to number 22 on this list, it is number 1503 in the Pop Television lineup. From Invincible, it is the Omni-Man and Invincible Moments. Now, this was a previews exclusive, so this marks as the first exclusive on this list. This had a detail rating of 9.4, personal reaction rating of 6.7, overall hype of 8.9, and the overall score being 8.33 out of 10, 0.03 higher than Jason Kelsey.
This is a really cool pop. I mean, the posing on this pop is really wicked, and just the detail that's put into it, I think it's really cool. It's done very, very well. I just don't know much about these characters to really have like a huge personal reaction, but at the same time, I think that this is a very, very cool pop, and of course, one of those moments where you probably want to have this one out of the box.
Coming in at number 21 on this list, this is number 1010 in the Pop Games lineup. From Funko Fusion, it is Eddie Funko. Now, this was a Funko Shop exclusive. This had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 7.6, and overall hype rating of 8.5, giving it an overall score of 8.43, 0.10 higher than the Omni-Man and Invincible Moments.
This is a cool pop. I definitely knew at some point we would probably have to have one of the Funko Fusion pops because they all look really, really cool. But of course, this one kind of stand out in comparison to all of the rest of them.
And for these lists, we always like discussing at certain points of whether or not they should be lower or higher. So this is what we consider the bottom 5 of the list, because the next set we'll be talking about is from number 20 to number 11. I feel like that there could be an argument made with pretty much all of these to where they should be a little bit higher, and perhaps some of the ones we did agree on could be in this spot or much lower. And I will say 100% that I think that Eddie Funko was robbed on this list. I think personally, like if I was personally ranking these, Eddie Funko may very well be in the top 10, maybe top 5 best Funko Pops of the year. Taking that spot of 21 is a little bit upsetting, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people, especially if you're an anime fan, are upset to see Chainsaw Man as the second last pop on this list. And then Jason Kelsey, I think it deserved to be a little bit higher, but it's one of those, like, it could have been either that number 21 spot like Eddie Funko, or like number 20 on like that middle point of the list. But there definitely, I feel like, are pops that we added to this that I'm surprised didn't make the bottom 5 of this list.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised about this bottom 5. A lot of these pops do have some good detail, but like, yeah, with like the Jason Kelsey, it's like, okay, that's a funny pop, but realistically, like how many people are buying that pop? And I feel like there's just a lot of really good stuff that came out this year that these do make sense. I think if anything, yeah, maybe Eddie might be the one that moves up. Saying top 10 or top 5, I don't think so in my opinion, but I could see why someone would make that argument.
So now starting off with number 20 on this list, this is number 143 in the Pop WWE lineup for the Hall of Fame set. It's gotta be Kane! So this was a Fanatics exclusive. This had a detail rating of 9.4, personal reaction rating of 8.7, overall hype rating of 7.2, giving it an overall score of 8.43, the same as Eddie Funko, but once again, it's that very specific rating of the fact that it had a higher detail and personal reaction rating for it to be one spot higher than Eddie Funko.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool, and it makes sense. I think we usually have a WWE pop on these lists because usually there is one of those standout pops, and this year with it being Kane, and what a great Kane pop it is as well. And it's cool that you get that little Hall of Fame plaque or award there too, is pretty interesting and is also in pop form.
Coming in at number 19 on this list, it's not even numbered. It is Special Edition, Pop Funko Special Edition from specifically Funkoville. It is the Roller Drive-In Franny. Now, this was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, limited to 1,000 pieces. It had a detail rating of 8.8, personal reaction rating of 8, overall hype of 8.7, and an overall score of 8.5. So 0.07 higher than Kane.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. I like the placement of this pop because it's a brand new character, I guess, for Funko with Franny, so it's really cool. I like this one. I hope next year we see stuff that's better because I think that we can definitely see some really great stuff, but that doesn't take anything away from this because this is definitely a wicked pop. I can't wait to eventually get some kind of Franny in my collection.
Coming in at number 18 on this list, this is number 1584 in the Pop animation lineup from One Piece. Yes, you heard that right. There is a One Piece pop on this list this year, and it's the Caesar Clown. Now, this was a C2E2 exclusive shared with the Funko Shop. It had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 7, overall hype of 9.6, giving it an overall score of 8.6. 0.10 higher than the Roller Drive-In Franny.
Yeah, this is a cool one. I like this pop a lot. The way that the base is kind of like filled with smoke and just the detail on this looks so cool. I love the way that the hair is kind of shaded on this pop. So it makes sense. It's definitely not one of my favorites of the year, but it's a really good looking pop nonetheless.
Coming in at number 17 on this list, this is number 1607 in the Pop Movies lineup. From Scream, or I guess I could say from the actual character is the lineup, it is the Bloody Ghostface. Now, specifically, this was a Hot Topic, or in this case, Hot Topic Scare Fair exclusive, which had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 8.2, overall hype of 8.5, giving it an overall score of 8.63 out of 10, 0.03 higher than the Caesar Clown.
Yeah, I love this version of Ghostface. I think this is great. It's so iconic. I do have the OG Ghostface, so I feel like I don't really want to add this one to my collection, but at the same time, I think I do like this one a lot more than the OG. I don't think this one necessarily got robbed because I like where it's at. It's got some cool detail with the blood, but it's also just kind of 3 colors for this pop.
Coming in at number 16 on this list, once again, it's a Pop Funko Special Edition. Doesn't have a specific fandom it's from, it's just Funko. Headless Freddy Funko. Now, this was a New York Comic Con shared with Funko Shop exclusive. This had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 8.8, and overall hype rating of 7.9, giving it an overall score of 8.63 out of 10, which is the same rating as Bloody Ghostface, and this is where it got really specific of how this was placed on those lists, which Headless Freddy had a lower hype rating than the Bloody Ghostface, but it had a higher personal reaction rating than Bloody Ghostface. However, both pops ended up having a 9.2 in detail. However, the reason that this one is higher is because Bloody Ghostface 9.2 was rounded out from 9.15, while Headless Freddy was not, thus making that 9.2 more official and adding it to number 16.
This pop is really freaking sweet. This is one of my favorite Freddys that I've seen in quite some time. I like the way that they utilize it being headless, but also have him like holding the head, so like it's basically basically not just like floating. You don't have to put like a little clear stand in there anywhere to make it give that illusion, which is really cool. And the way that the colors are with the different shades of blue to give the appearance of it being like a ghost is very well done. I really enjoy this. I would love to own this pop at some point.
Coming in at number 15 on this list, it's number 1593 in the Pop television lineup. From Beavis and Butthead, it is Cornholio, and he needs TP for his bunghole. This is a common pop. This has a detail rating of 8.9, personal reaction rating of 9.6, and overall hype rating of 7.7, giving it an overall score of 8.73, 0.10 higher than Headless Freddy and, I guess, Bloody Ghostface.
Nicaragua. Yeah, this is wicked. I love that we finally got a Cornholio. We had those 2 original Beavis and Butthead pops, and we wanted more. And finally this year we got more. The worker versions of Beavis and Butthead, like the fry cooks, those are pretty cool. I like those as well, but we needed a Cornholio, and they definitely killed it with this one. It looks so good.
Coming in at number 14 on this list, it's number 1672 in the Pop animation lineup. From SpongeBob SquarePants, it is Mocking SpongeBob. Now, this was a Hot Topic exclusive. This had a detail rating of 8.9, personal reaction rating of 9.4, and an overall hype rating of 8, giving it an overall score of 8.77, 0.04 higher than Cornholio.
This is a really hilarious pop. I was shocked to see that this was part of this 25th anniversary set of SpongeBob. I never would have thought they would have done like a meme SpongeBob pop like that, but we got a couple of them, which was really cool. And yeah, the Mocking SpongeBob is just so funny, and it looks pretty well done. So yeah, I definitely had a huge personal reaction for this pop.
Coming in at number 13 on this list, this is number 32 in the Pop Books lineup. From Goosebumps, it is Night of the Living Dummy. Now, this was a common pop. This had a detail rating of 8.9, personal reaction rating of 8.8, and an overall hype of 8.8, giving it an overall score of 8.83.
Yeah, this is a pretty sweet pop as well. I think that it looks great. I do like the Haunted Mask pop a little bit more, and I do own that pop, but this one is super iconic as well, so this makes a lot of sense.
Coming in at number 12 on this list, this is number 1471 in the Pop television lineup. From South Park, it is Timmy and Gobbles. This was once again a common pop. This had a detail rating of 8.5, personal reaction rating of 9, overall hype rating of 9, with a overall score of 8.83, the same as the Night of the Living Dummy, except that it had a higher personal reaction and higher hype rating, thus making it 1 spot higher than Night of the Living Dummy.
This pop is so funny. I think that alone by itself, it is done very well. Timmy looks awesome with this pop, but then they add Gobbles in there, and I think that that just makes it even 1 step ahead. So I'm not surprised to see it making it in the top 25 pops.
Coming in at number 11 on this list, this is number 1691 in the Pop animation lineup. From Bleach, oh god, here we go, I'm going to butcher the name, it's Leucoria? Oh my god, I don't know. The ones whose last name is Shafar. I don't know how to pronounce it because I fucking suck at pronouncing anime names unless it's Yu-Gi-Oh! So this pop was a New York Comic Con exclusive shared with Toy Tokyo. This had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 8, overall hype of 9.3, giving it an overall score of 8.83, the same rating as we've seen with Timmy and Gobbles and Night of the Living Dummy, but it had a higher detail and hype rating than Timmy and Gobbles, and also had much higher ratings than even Night of the Living Dummy, thus taking literally the top spot right before the top 10 portion of this list.
Yeah, this is a really interesting pop with the way that, I guess, the character design on it, like, it's got, like, hairy arms and legs as well as wings and horns. It's just a really interesting character. I would love to see what this character actually does in the show, and I think that because of this pop, that's why it makes me feel like that. So obviously, that means this is a pretty good pop. Of course, making it at number 11 is pretty crazy.
And so now we're going to discuss about this middle of the list, and do some pops deserve to be on the bottom portion of this list or deserve to be in that top 10 portion? Honestly, I think for the most part, a lot of these pops I would agree about being in this slot of between 11 and 20. I think you could say that maybe some deserve to be lower than others. I think if there's a couple of pops that maybe I could see being in the bottom 5, it's perhaps literally what ends up being the bottom of this list. Probably either Kane or Roller Drive-In Franny, just because of Franny not being as detailed as a lot of the pops, but Kane makes sense for him to, he only made it into this part because he had a higher rating than Eddie Funko, so if anything, I would have rather seen or wanted to see Freddy Funko actually take number 20 instead of Kane. The Bleach Pop actually making it as the number 11 spot, almost cracking the top 10 spot because of how detailed it is. Of course, there are some that kind of didn't get higher up on the list, like Cornholio, because of its 7.7 in the overall hype, which of course is the rating where we look at the comments based from you guys across social media. Stuff like the hype is reasons why some of these pops don't make it higher than the other. But yeah, I think this is pretty much a solid middle of the list.
I definitely have to agree that, yeah, this is a solid middle to this. So much to the point where as I'm looking at the photos of the pops, a couple times before DK actually named the pop, I was like, oh, this one's going to be next most likely. And it actually happened. When it comes to the top like 5, that's where it's going to get a lot trickier. But in the middle here, yeah, these are all pretty good.
I guess we're ready to talk about now the top 10 portion of this list. Coming in at number 10, this is number 1672 in the Pop Movies lineup. From Terrifier, it is the Bloody Art the Clown. Now, this was a Hot Topic Scare Fair exclusive. It had a detail rating of 9.5, personal reaction rating of 8.4, an overall hype rating of 8.9, giving it an overall score of 8.93 out of 10, 0.10 higher than the last 3 pops that all tied for the same rating.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, this pop has so much detail. It looks so good with the success of Terrifier 3. It just makes a lot of sense to see this pop on this list. It's so cool.
Coming in at number 9 on this list, this is number 1597 in the Pop Movies lineup. From Shrek, it is Gingy. So this was a common pop. This had a detail rating of 9.2, personal reaction rating of 9.4, and an overall hype rating of 8.3, giving it an overall score of 8.97 out of 10, 0.04 higher than Art the Clown.
Yeah, I kind of figured that Gingy would make the top 10. I mean, it's a pop that everyone's kind of been wanting, and I think it was done very, very well. It looks great. It almost doesn't even look like a Funko Pop, which is a good thing, and the missing leg with the candy cane crutch is a great detail as well, instead of just doing like a more normal version of Gingy himself.
Coming in at number 8 on this list, this is number 9 in the Pop SNL lineup. From the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary set, it is Matt Foley. This was a common pop. This had a detail rating of 8.7, personal reaction rating of 9.4, and an overall hype rating of 8.8, giving it an overall score of 8.97. Same score as Gingy, but it had a higher reaction and hype rating, thus making it to number 8 on this list.
Yeah, this is a wicked pop. It's a pop that I think me and DK have both wanted for our collections for a while. I think at some point I actually predicted this in like a prediction videos for a convention. But yeah, Matt Foley's awesome. This looks so cool. I feel like this is one of those pops where you just know who this is when you look at it, which is always something that you'd like to see from a pop that is just a human character. So yeah, this is great. Definitely going to be added to my collection, and I would assume probably in DK's collection as well.
Coming in at number 7 on this list, this is actually a 2-pack, more specifically from the Muppets, and it's Kermit and Constantine. Now, this was a Hot Topic exclusive. This had a detail rating of 8.3, personal reaction of 9.4, overall hype of 9.4, giving it an overall score of 9.03 out of 10.
This is an unreal pop that I have in my collection, which is so awesome. Currently staring at it up on the shelf over there. And this is so cool. You get kind of like 2 versions of Kermit the Frog, essentially, with the Constantine is so funny. I love the way that they did that. And another Kermit, of course, this is before we got like the Kermit holding the mug. So this is really cool. If you don't have that OG Kermit in your collection, you can get this version, which is a little bit better because his hands just aren't to the side. He actually has some posing going on with his hands. So yeah, really cool 2-pack. Glad that it's a Hot Topic exclusive as well.
Coming in at number 6 on this list, this is number 13 in the Pop Muppets set. I don't have to say where it's from because obviously it's from the Muppets. It is the Flocked Animal. Now, this was a New York Comic Con exclusive, limited to 1,500 pieces specifically. Unless you were talking about the normal one, then of course that was shared with the Funko Shop, which this had a detail rating of 9.6, personal reaction rating of 9.3, an overall hype rating of 8.3, giving it an overall score of 9.07, 0.04 higher than the other Muppets Pop of Kermit and Constantine.
This is one of my favorite pops of the year. I can't wait to have this in my collection. I do have the more common version, but I would love to have this 1,500 piece count animal. It's so cool. I do have the original flocked one. This one's a little bit better. I mean, he's got the drumsticks out and the whole drum kit in front of him. What a great pop.
Coming in at number 5 on this list, this is number 1670 in the Pop animation lineup. From SpongeBob SquarePants, it is Doodle Bob. This was a common pop. This had a detail rating of 8.8, personal reaction rating of 9.5, overall hype of 9, giving it an overall score of 9.1 out of 10.
Yeah, this pop is hilarious. We've been wanting a Doodle Bob pop forever, so it's so great to finally see it with this new wave of SpongeBob pops. And I want to know, like, how this sold. I figure this probably had to do very, very well. I found one in stores, but, like, when you compare it to the rest of the set, you definitely don't see as many Doodle Bobs as you'll see, like, let's say, for instance, like, the I'm a Head Out SpongeBob, or the Mocking SpongeBob, or, like, the Patrick that's in that set. You're not going to find the Doodle Bob that easily because people want this pop. It's so good.
Coming in at number 4 on this list, this is number 1529 in the Pop television lineup. From The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron for Nickelodeon, it is Jimmy Neutron. Now, this was a common pop. It had a detail rating of 9, personal reaction rating of 9.4, overall hype of 9, giving it an overall score of 9.13, 0.03 higher than Doodle Bob. Minoy, minoy.
Yeah, this pop is amazing. I was so happy when it got announced, and then being able to find one in stores was awesome as well. He just looks so good. I can't wait to get more pops for this show, which is definitely in the rumor mill, and it'll definitely just add to this pop that already looks great.
Coming in at number 3 on this list, this is number 1498 in the Pop television lineup. From The Simpsons, it is Poochie. Now, this was a C2E2 exclusive shared with the Funko Shop. This had a detail rating of 9.6, personal reaction rating of 9.4, and an overall hype rating of 9.3, giving it an overall score of 9.3 out of 10.
Yeah, I love this Poochie Pop. I think that it looks great. I can't wait to add it to my collection. It's so cool, and it's just, I love this pop so much. The colors pop on this. They stand out so well, and yeah, just a really cool one to add to the Simpsons set of a more obscure character.
Coming in at number 2 on this list, this is number 1692 in the Pop animation lineup. From Yu-Gi-Oh! It is Mystical Elf. Now, this was a New York Comic Con exclusive shared with the Funko Shop. This had a detail rating of 9.5, and here's how funny this rating is. So, detail rating of 9.5, personal reaction rating of 9.5, overall hype rating 9.5, which automatically by proxy and simple math means that the overall score is 9.5 out of 10.
This pop is amazing. I wanted a Mystical Elf for the Yu-Gi-Oh set for a few years now, so it's so great to finally get one. This pop looks gorgeous in person and, of course, in the glam shots as well. A very, very cool pop, and really excited to have this one in the collection as well. Definitely one of the best pops of the year.
And now, before we talk about the number 1 pick, we gotta talk about 2 things. The first one being, of course, do any of these deserve to be on the top 10 portion or much lower? And which pop, possibly, if it's any of these, should have been the number 1 pop? So for the most part, I think once again, I would say that the majority of this is a pretty solid one. I do think there are a couple of pops that should have been lower. First one I'll get out of the way is Gingy. Not only do I think that Gingy should have been in the top 10, I don't even know if Gingy even should be in like that middle part of the the list. I could see this as a bottom 5 pop. I know that's a bit of a hot take, but especially when you look at the detail involved with it, it's obviously not as detailed as the majority of the pops that have made it onto the list. Get it with overall hype. People have been wanting this, like the only gingerbread pop that people have been wanting the last few years instead of the Marvel and DC ones. Another one, I feel like Kermit and Constantine maybe should have been on the top 10 list. I think Flocked Animal, of course, because not only is it awesome to have this certain animal pop, but also being flocked and a limited piece count. But being in the middle of the road part of the list, I think, yeah, okay, that definitely makes sense. I'm actually really surprised to have seen Matt Foley go higher than Gingy on this list. Art the Clown definitely makes sense because those Hot Topic Scare Fair pops are just absolutely insane. But then, yeah, the rest, like Poochie, awesome. Mystical Elf, I'm honestly surprised that Mystical Elf didn't make it as number 1 on this list because both MD and I really enjoy this pop, so that's kind of why all of this rating is high, and especially the overall hype rating. I will mention that out of all the comments, only one of them was a bad comment, which is why it's 9.5. We almost had the very first ever 10 out of 10 hype rating on this podcast because of one person that decided to put a bad comment.
Yeah, I think most of this part of the list makes sense. I can't believe that Animal didn't make it into the top 5. I think for sure that's easily a top 3 pop, but it kind of makes sense. We've seen Animal pops before. It's not a brand new character, but it is a beauty of a character nonetheless. But yeah, besides that, I think everything is pretty much exactly where, like, if I were to just rank these in top 25, it's almost identical to what I would do. I think maybe only a couple things I would potentially switch up, but not much. I think it's pretty good so far.
And then also, before we talk about the number 1 pop, we always got to mention about those honorable mentions. Pops that we thought about adding to the list, but we decided whether it's because we just felt it wasn't right to put it on the list, or maybe a lot of times when it comes to these lists, we always have to like agree upon what pops are coming on the list. So sometimes I'll mention something and MD will be like, no, I don't think that should be. It's like, all right, that's kind of scrapped until we actually figure this out. And then vice versa. That'll be the same thing. I think the first one I will mention is the I'm a Head Out SpongeBob SquarePants pop. This is a case where there was quite a bit of cool SpongeBob pops. It was difficult to choose what was going to be on the list, and even for when now we do the top 25 pops, it's difficult to decide which sets of pops deserve to have more than one on the list. When we did the top 50 list a few years back, there was a lot of sets that easily could have had at least 2 pops, but when you're crunching it down to top 25, I feel like only a select number of sets deserve to have multiple pops on this list. For SpongeBob, at least we can mention that we've mentioned 2, so that's a set that we decide that deserves to be at least 2 pops on the list. Another honorable mention that I wanted to talk about is the glow-in-the-dark holographic Darth Maul from the Dark Side Star Wars set. And the reason I wanted to give this an honorable mention is because we actually originally had this pop on the top 25 list. And while doing the list last minute, I actually messaged MD Shaddy and I said, hey, I'm kind of having cold feet about having this Darth Maul pop on the list. What do you think about this pop? And he's like, yeah, let's put that. And we'll mention that pop actually was the Mocking SpongeBob pop. And then I guess the last honorable mention would be both Leatherface and the Evil Ash from the Hot Topic Scare Fair pops. I think in a world where if we had the top 50 list, I think all 4 of the Hot Topic Scare Fair pops would have been viable contenders for this list, because this easily may be one of like the best, like, I guess you can call it convention, but not really convention exclusive pops at the same time. All 4 of these pops had detail, but we knew that if we were crunching it down to 25, that we need to figure out like either 1 or 2.
One honorable mention that I have is Professor Hinkle with Hocus Pocus. I think that was a really great pop, part of the new Frosty the Snowman set. And then another pop that I had, Wicked Witch of the West. I think that was very good as well with the cauldron. I think it was for San Diego Comic-Con, if I'm not mistaken. But besides that, like, maybe some of the new Sesame Street set with maybe like Abby Cadabby or the Cookie Monster or even the Elmo with Rocco.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 pop this year. We got ourselves number 1593 in the pop movies lineup. From Terrifier, it is the Art the Clown with Glasses Chase. And this was a Funko Shop exclusive. This had a detail rating of 9.9, personal reaction rating of 9.1, and an overall hype rating of 9.6, giving it an overall score of 9.53 out of 10. 0.03 higher than Mystical Elf from Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, a lot of people were hyped because of the Terrifier pops, and especially this pop being a Funko Shop exclusive to where it actually sold out, which is actually rare nowadays to see Funko Shop exclusives sell out. And not only did this Funko Shop exclusive with a great chase sell out once on the Funko Shop, but a restock happened and it sold out again. So that also tells you something of like, this is a contender for the best Funko Pop of the year. The detail is absolutely phenomenal with the glasses, especially because it fits with the whole thing of like, could be one of those pops that actually looks like the human character itself, considering that the pop eyes go with the glasses itself. And the amount of blood that's on this pop is crazy also. Yeah, I'm not surprised Art the Clown with glasses is number one, but I'm surprised that because of our own personal reaction and detail ratings, that it did make it up to number one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. It makes a lot of sense. This is a wicked pop. I really wanted to get this pop for one of my coworkers, so maybe one day I'll have to do that. But yeah, like craziness, like being able to sell it on the Funko Shop twice definitely says something. This pop just has so much detail. It's fun, it's creepy, it's so cool. I probably would have ranked this the best of the year, honestly. This is just such a great pop.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this edition of A Funko Podcast. And if you enjoyed this top 25 pops of 2024 podcast, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what your favorite pops were for 2024. And we hope to see you guys for the very last episode of A Funko Podcast tomorrow here on the channel. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here. And I guess here's MD Shady's very last very creative and wacky outro.
Living in a van down by the river, not to the gumdrop buttons. Peace in, peace out.